Canada entered World War I in August 1914 alongside Britain. Many were enthusiastic to fight for the British Empire because of the honor and loyalty they felt towards the mother country. The Canadian government's propaganda was very effective promoting the war effort and encouraging enlistment. During this time, Canada's military was lacking, with just over 3,000 officers and soldiers who served in militia units. Most units did not take their job seriously. This attitude had to be put aside at the beginning of the Great War. Prior to the Great War, Canada marked its first official expedition of troops to a war overseas, in the Boer War in South Africa. Canada, alongside the British Empire, was fighting the South African Dutch descendants called the Boers. During the war, Canada was heavily reliant on Britain's military power and failed to establish themselves as an independent nation. Over 7,000 Canadians enlisted in the effort, although the war is very controversial at home and further increased the tensions between English Canadians and French Canadians. 12 years later, Canada joined the British Empire in World War I. Canada's first major battle was the Second Battle of Ypres, which lasted from April 22, 1915 to May 22, 1915. The Second Battle of Ypres was one of the bloodiest battles in the First World War. With more than 6,000 Canadians killed, wounded, or held as prisoners, the Canadian Army was defeated due to the chlorine gas used by the German Army. This is the first example of Canada showing that they were a force to be reckoned with. The Canadians survived the majority of the gas attacks and resisted the oncoming attacks from the German onslaught.
In 1917, Canada partook in an event that would change the way that other countries perceived them. This event is none other than Vimy Ridge. Canada was officially given the go-ahead for the battle in the early months of 1917. This was a historical moment for Canada, as it was the first time they were given responsibility to fight a battle by themselves. The 4 divisions of Canadian soldiers were led by courageous leaders, Arthur Currie and Julian Byng. Currie was the brain behind the Vimy Ridge takeover, as he rose through the ranks to become general, as his military skill and prowess, but he was especially gifted in battle tactics and strategy, causing him to be the first and only Canadian to be appointed head of the Canadian Corps. Byng was a British general who assisted Currie in the preparation and takeover of Vimy Ridge, and was the one who recommended him to oversee the battle alongside Byng. One of the revolutionary parts about Vimy Ridge was the tactics employed by Currie. Prior to the battle, the primary strategy used in the war in the trenches was over the top, in which the two sides would bombard each other with artillery until the general decided they had weakened the other side enough for the troops to jump over the trenches, charge into no man's land, and try to take the enemy lines. This tactic was heavily flawed and extremely dangerous. The soldiers had to run through bombs, mines, barbed wire, and if the generals made the wrong prediction, enemy fire. In contrast, Arthur Currie decided to make a detailed plan to increase their chances of success at Vimy Ridge.
So we also laid out a full-size model of the ridge for the men to practice on. They know where every German strongpoint is, every machine gun, every bunker.
His plan involved moving all the soldiers at a specific pace so that artillery shells could be fired directly ahead of the soldiers. Prior to the infiltration of Vimy Ridge, Canadians dug tunnels under and behind enemy lines in order to raid and gather information on the Germans. This also got the Germans accustomed to small attacks and invasions, so when the true battle began, they were unaware of the strength and size of the oncoming army. Currie talked to locals in northern France and observed aerial images of Vimy Ridge to construct a detailed, accurate skeleton model of the ridge. This would determine the key points of attack and how the best strategy to invade the Germans. The Canadian soldiers were lectured on the tactics that were to be used during the battle. Then began 3 months of intense planning and practice with the model for the soldiers, while Arthur commanded.
And Mother, I thought, we are a nation. This is us.
The first shots from the Canadian artillery were fired at 5:30 on April 9th, 1917, Easter Monday. The artillery fire slowly advanced on the Germans, with the first wave of 20,000 Canadians behind it, led by Byng and Currie. All the soldiers were heavily weighed down by equipment and the mud clinging to their uniforms. This made traveling through the devastated no man's land extremely difficult. Despite the fact they had to force their way through sleet and blistering winds, the weather was very favorable for the Canadians, as the fog and low light impeded the Germans' visibility greatly, taking away one of their primary advantages, being able to see the oncoming attacks. With the fog in place, the soldiers were not visible until they were nearly at the base of the hill, leaving the Germans unprepared for and oblivious to the oncoming assault. The most treacherous part of the Canadians' advance was climbing Hill 145 in the center of Vimy Ridge that made the territory so valuable. It was challenging for the Canadians to make their way uphill against the Germans' onslaught of bullets. However, because of Currie's intense practice and planning, they were able to execute their plan flawlessly. As men marched up the slope, they were able to land their infantry assault on the Germans as they still recovering from the shelling. The severe pressure from the Canadian soldiers and the artillery fire combined eventually led to the Germans being overwhelmed and defeated.
The Battle of Vimy Ridge proved to be a stunning victory for Canada, establishing their reputation as an elite fighting force. On the home front, a newfound sense of national pride was established. Vimy Ridge proved to be a great victory for Canada, following the various failed attempts at capturing the ridge. In addition, the Battle of Vimy Ridge helped to prove Canadian independence, making them appear a significant military presence as a result of their successes. On the whole, Canadians had achieved success that advanced any previous British offensive in the entirety of World War I, with more ground gained, more prisoners captured, and more artillery taken. But every victory has a taste that's bittersweet. With this great success came great casualties. Over the course of 4 days of active battle, over 3,500 soldiers were killed, with a following approximate of 7,000 wounded. Although these losses were high, they were shockingly lower than in any previous Allied offense. For the Battle of Vimy Ridge, the successes proved to outweigh the consequences, as this Canadian triumph founded and strengthened Canada's national identity. Canadian victory in the battle earned the country an individual signature separate from the British Empire on the Treaty of Versailles, the document that ceremoniously ended World War I. Following the war, Canada was invited to join the League of Nations, therefore qualifying them as an independent nation. April 9, 2017 marks the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge, the battle that established Canadian pride, nationalism, and enhanced our identity as a country. Today there stands the Canadian National Vimy Memorial on land of the former battlefield, graciously gifted to Canada by France. In the solitude of the countryside, when stained with blood, the memorial remembers those lost and presumed dead during battle. Since 1936, the Canadian National Vimy Memorial has stood as a symbol of Canadian victory, honor, and lasting peace. Today we remember the Battle of Vimy Ridge, the introduction of our independence, a lasting identity, our sense of national pride, and a legacy of victory.